Let's see. Can I hear myself?
Let's see.
Oh, I can. That's perfect.
Can I hear myself? Let's see. Oh, I can. That's perfect.
Okay. Hi, Biohazard.
Hi, Biohazard.
Okay, open up the stream on my computer. Let's see. How am I? I am okay. I'm attempting to be productive. I've been playing Minecraft most of the day with my friend. So I figured I'd throw in an audio drama and stream with making some art.
Music by a pony named Octavia? What? Hamid burst in glee. I started from her sudden enthusiasm. You have something by Octavia? I thought the MOM and MOI banned her in that charity concert. All of her recordings were destroyed. Well, I found some, with her? And Hamid's smile turned more sympathetic. She ended up in flank. But she still has a ton of records with her. I have them in chapel and downloaded others from her terminal. Thank you, Blackjack. I don't know. I know you don't like being told this, but you're my hero for sending this to me, she said, and I went red once again. Well, yeah. And some music from some weird ponies in flank in a club called Mixers, and, some that I played. I added Blinkley as the Pigbuck broadcaster made a connection to the computers. It's horrible, though. Just horrible. You play? She grinned at me. Horrible? What instrument? A contrabass, or so I'm told. I muttered as I tapped my forehooves together awkwardly. Just like Octavia. Could she grin any wider? Did I mention I was horrible at it? I said as I flushed, and funny, I felt better, oddly more alive, hurt and hollow, but better. Anyway, I'll just send it all to you. I know you like music. Maybe some of your listeners will too. She shook her head. You're incredible. Someday, when this is all over, the three of us need to get together and share stories.
Ooh, hi Storm. You got a new iPad, Bio? That's super fucking cool.
And glory? It didn't really matter at the moment. We'll see, I said as I watched the Pipbug upload the music files. I could only hope that Homage would know how to receive them. Thanks, Blackjack, she said with a clear sincerity. Look, I need to get back on the air. Folks get anxious if I'm away for too long, and there's stuff happening out west. I hope you find what you need to find, Blackjack. I hope you think about what I told you. You might not feel like it now, but you are a hero. She gave one last smile of comfort, then left to return to her microphone. What kind of hero wants to kill herself? I muttered softly to myself as I sat back. One that fits Hoofington, the dealer murmured. I looked at him shuffling his cards. I thought you were gone for good. You've missed some real opportunities to fuck with my head, I said sharply as I rose to my hooves. He looked at me with a thin smile. Well, there's not much point in kicking a mare who's beating herself down already. Where's the fun in that? He asked, then looked at his cards. Don't kill yourself. You know it's wrong. Of course I do, I said softly as I looked down at the Delta Controls cool blue screen. The good feelings were going fast. I was already starting to smell chlorine. I know I'm loved. I know I help people. I just feel like it doesn't matter. The ponies I saved today are just going to die tomorrow. Every pony dies. You've seen what happens when they don't. Don't tell me that's preferable. The dealer said as he showed me 3 cards depicting Rampage, Blue Blood, and Dace. I'm not talking about eventually. I'm talking about dying bad. We just barely hold on, and every day a little bit more just falls away. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me there's hope in this poisoned land. He sighed and stopped shuffling the cards, just holding them between his hooves. I sat down beside him. I need to know what I'm living for. I need to know that there's something better possible, and that it's not going to keep getting worse and worse. I sighed and leaned back, tapping my head against the metal wall. I was sick of being the universe's chew toy. I know, Blackjack. It's a question I ask myself, too. He said with a small, old smile. Of course you do, because you're my crazy, I said, as I looked down at the sleek black Pip-Buck. How am I supposed to find out where this EC thing is supposed to go next? Was I supposed to thump it? Shake it? You're asking me. He chuckled and the Pip-Buck blinked. Equestria Military Command Hub, Hoofington, Ironmare Station. The display showed the navigation further east and was even kind enough to copy it to Marmalade's Pip-Buck. I held up the black device with my magic. It can even calculate the value of Radroach meat, tell me if some pony plans to kill me or not, and can download the data I need and move it around for convenience, even if I don't have a clue how to look for the data. Is there anything it doesn't do? Tell you the secrets of happiness, apparently, he replied dryly, shaking his head. So, are you going to kill yourself still?
Hi, Adri.
I muttered as I looked at him. I can't live with what I've done. I know it wasn't my fault. I know that. But for every second I'm not doing something, it's tearing me apart. Homage was right. I need to find something to live for. Something that matters. Or I need to kill myself before I become a complete monster. He just stared at me, and I smiled mirthlessly. I can feel it happening, dealer. It happened at the stable. I fought to kill until I almost died killing every pony around me. What if I pulled that in Megamart? Or Chapel? I can't let that happen. I can't let Gats in my stable ever be okay. I just can't. He put his hoof on mine. You remind me about how things used to be, Blackjack. I hope you find what you need. The Wasteland needs you. Your friends need you. I need you. And with that, my crazy hallucination went away. I found a pencil and some scrap paper in my packs. Went for a walk. Might not be back. Meet you in Megamart if I am. Sorry, BJ. Then I fished out the stealth buck and after some fiddling, activated its magic. I headed down towards, until I heard P-21 searching. I looked at him with a parting smile. I slipped the note under my Delta pip and set it down in the doorway. Discover. Then I headed out the door. Feeling better than I had in ages, I started north, towards the sea. I wasn't really paying attention to how long I wandered. An hour? 2? 3? Night arrived, and my eyes transformed everything into amber hues. Up north, the land became rocky, and here and there were thin gray trees with a few sick leaves clinging to them. I could hear the steady, repetitive, but constant, unique sounds of the waves growing louder and louder with each passing moment. And then the land ended.
Your new doll? No, I don't think I did. Unless it's one of the new anime figures you were showing off yesterday.
Endless plain of churning water. Cold winds snapped at me. The clouds overhead, spitting occasional cold blasts of rain that mixed with the hang in the air. Step by step, along the narrow trail that wound towards the point, passing by dissected picnic tables and fire pits. Marmalade's Pip-Buck chirrumed softly, Star Point appeared in the navigation tool. Finally, I came to an end. The tip of the great stone triangle, surrounded by all that openness. I felt an odd, familiar sensation swallow me. The rusted remains of guardrails ran around edges of the great wedge of stone. The long grass rattled softly in the wind. At least, I had company. One lone skeleton lay there in the center of the rock, protected by a single divot. The few rags and decayed duffel bag anchoring the unicorn's remains. "Hey," I said softly to the bones as I clenched my eyes shut, feeling the familiar panic rolling back and forth within me, giving way to resignation that, bad as it felt, was tolerable. I opened my eyes again. Cold, vast emptiness. A hard mountain loomed to the west. The harbor ruins stretched to the east. Behind me was Stable 99 and all my bloody sins. Ahead of me, nothing but stark emptiness. I felt as if I were alone on the moon. "I hope you don't mind some company," I murmured softly as I drew vigilance. I was over. This was done. I pushed the gun to the underside of my jaw and clenched my eyes shut. If there was something, anything, to keep me alive, now would be the time for it. I pulled the trigger. The weapon clicked softly as the cool metal ring kissed the underside of my jaw. Slowly, I moved the gun back into my field of vision and stared down at it, at the safety. I slowly shook as I looked at the small tab above the trigger. Salty tears mixed with the ocean spray as I curled up beside those bones. I looked at the eye sockets and the salt-crusted glasses that lay atop them. They seemed to stare at me, asking me why I was doing this. Had this mare come out here to die when the bombs fell, choosing where she would finally meet her end? Had she died weeping, in pain, or had she wanted to live? To stay with the ponies that loved her, to stay in a world that was dying and falling apart. What sense was there living in a world that only got worse? In a world without princesses, where the only reward for doing good was misery and everything worthwhile became tarnished? I flicked off the safety. 400 murders, 40 colts and fillies, Scootle. If the penalty for murder was death, then I wished I could die 441 times to pay the price in full. Bowing my head, I put the barrel in my mouth, felt the cool silver plate, tasted the salt on the barrel. The skull of the bony pony broke free and bumped against my leg. I looked down at it, at the still faintly blue horn touching my knee. "How do I go on living?" I whispered. And then I saw that the seam on the bag had split. A few ratty clothes, a fool's rattle, a battled recorder. I carefully pulled it all out. The machine was trashed, but I connected to my pip lock. There were only 2 fragments recoverable. I played the last. There was lots of yelling, shooting, shoving, and scared cries. "Mommy, I'm scared. Where are we going?" "We're going to a stable, sweetie. Remember? Just like I told you," she said softly. "I don't want to go to a stable. I want to go home. Why can't we go home, Mommy?" Shh, shh. We have to go. It's the only safe place left." "Stable pass?" asked a mare. "Here, from you, my daughter." Whoa. This pass is for stable 90, not 99. You can't just swap these things. Please, there's no way we can reach stable 90 in time. "Not my fault. Get back." There were sounds of a shuffle, of another mare asking in a more authoritative tone, "What's going on here?" "Please, our passes are for 90, not 99, but please, take her." "The rules are clear, Trick." The mother gave a sob. "Fuck the rules. My pass says I can bring a kid if I want. Well, I don't have one." Her harsh tone softened. "I'll take her." "You will?" "Oh, thank you. Thank you. Honey, you need to go with this nice pony, okay?" "No, Mommy, I want to stay with you," the filly wailed. "I want to go home. Why can't we go home?" "Listen, please, please." Her mother begged frantically, the filly sniffling. You have to go with her. This is your home now. You need to live. You need to grow up. To be a big girl. You're going to do great things. You're going to have kids. And they're going to do great things. But to do that, you need to live. No. Mommy. No. I'll always remember how proud of you I am. How glad I am to see you becoming such a good girl.
Thank you, Bio. I'm glad you like it.
You kept me strong. And now, you have to go and help other ponies too. Please.
The character belongs to my friend Ace.
Promise me you'll live.
I felt like drawing a dragon, so
A sniffle.
why not?
I promise, Mommy. I promise. And that's my big girl. My good girl. You have stars in your eyes. Don't ever forget that. We gotta steal the stable, ma'am. The mayor said softly. There's a whole mob coming. Thank you. A sniff and a nuzzle. I love you. I love you. I love you, Mommy. The little filly beloved. I love you. Come on, honey. Let's get inside. I'll show you a trick. It's my super special talent. Goodbye. The mother whispered. There was a metallic ground as the door rolled into place. She wept as I looked down at her bones. She'd given her daughter away to save her. How many parents had made the same sacrifice? Who had something they loved so much that it was more important than their own life? What was I living for? What could I be living to die for? Glory? I cared for her, maybe even loved her a little. Revenge? No. As much as I hate Sanguine for what he did, I don't have some burning vendetta in my heart. Was it virtue? Friendship? Were either of those enough? Would I be here if they were? I pressed the gun to the side of my head, leaning back this time. I clenched my eyes shut. My magic increased on the trigger. Then I opened my eyes for one last look at the poor, sick world before I left. Stars. The hole in the cloud was no bigger than my hoof, and only a dozen or so stars twinkled softly in the night. Only a fool would demand power of the stars. Please, I said, as I stared up at the gap in the heavens, at those tiny, wrinkling jewels in the sky, as tears ran down my face. Please, help me. I need something. Anything. Anything that can make me bear this. My gun trembled as I begged for the heavens for something to stop this, to give me a reason to go on, a reason that I could live with, something that I could make the murder of hundreds bearable. My horn brightened. Blackjack, asked a tiny metallic voice behind me. What are you doing?
Glad you're back, Storm.
Ever so slowly. I turned to look at the bobbing sprite bot. Watcher? I whispered, my voice cracking. Those robotic eyes just stayed focused on me as I sniffed and said, I'm afraid I fucked up again. The tiny machine bobbed closer. I disagree with that. Why don't you put the gun down and tell me about it? Slowly, I lowered the weapon and told the robot everything that happened about the gas station to now. I told him everything. My lies and fears and how much I hated myself for wanting to die when so many others wanted to live but didn't. This poor mare had lost everything to save her daughter. Why couldn't I find a reason to live in this dying, poisoned world? Wow. Blackjack, just... wow. The sprite bot said in his tinny voice, I'm sorry. I can't imagine anything that would make it easier. Yeah, I said as I faced the robot. You told me the way to survive school's death was to fight every second to make things better. But I haven't made things better. I've just raised my death count by a factor of 10. I closed my eyes. You told me you knew ponies who fucked up and killed millions. Do you think those ponies could live with those deaths? I don't know. I really don't. How do you survive, Watcher? I asked quietly. What do you mean? Well, You watch the wasteland. You try to get ponies to do good things. You've seen failure time and time again. You've seen the wasteland decaying. What keeps you going? I asked softly. He floated before me. Hope, he replied after a minute. Hope that someday my mistakes can be forgiven, and hope that Equestria can heal. I looked out at that endless dark water. I don't see how any pony can have hope anymore. The sprite bot just bobbed there for a second. Then he said quietly, "Would you like me to show you?" "What?" I asked as I looked at the bot sharply. "You're literally only a few minutes from me. If you promise not to tell another soul, and I showed you what gives me hope day after day, do you think you could live?" I stared at him and then gave a shrug. "Maybe." "Then stay there, and don't move." And with a crackle, the bug robot resumed his normal behavior and flew back towards the gray woods. Don't move. I looked around at the flat slab of rock, the rainy woods, the black waters, the gray ruins that loomed on the dark mountains. 1 minute. 2. I sighed and then saw something glint through the tear in the bag. The frame was corroded and flaked from the salt, but the glass had preserved the drawing within. The unicorn mare with the streaks in her mane looked down at the small filly in her embrace, holding her still for the artist. I looked at the 2 streaks of color in her scraggy mane, rather like a skunk, and not like her mother at all. Even after 2 centuries, there was a bright light in those filly's eyes. I suppose that could have been artist's fancy, though. And then I stared hard at the mother. I'd seen her before, but where? And then I was flying through the air, screaming like crazy as the dark waves flashed beneath me. Razor-sharp talons tightened against me as we flew higher and higher, powerful winds blasting me with a gale. I looked at a massive reptilian head, the scaly purple hide, and the lashing tail as we lifted clear up into the clouds. After a while, I screamed like crazy. This was not how I wanted to die. "Relax, Blackjack." The dragon growled in a steep voice. "I told you I was coming to get you, didn't I?" He said as he flew higher, up through the tops of the clouds, and higher towards the cave near the top of the suddenly much closer mountain. "Watcher?" He grinned down at me. I took a deep breath and yelled at the top of my lungs. "Couldn't you have mentioned you're a friggin' dragon?" Heights like this were no good. No good at all. I was glad the flight was mercifully brief and that I hadn't the opportunity to soil my armor before I was deposited inside the cave. The large purple and green dragon immediately started to check the cave. "Wait here," he growled as I stood next to a massive pile of gems. If that treasure wasn't what he was so worried about, then I didn't worry to idly kick a few errant diamonds back into the heap. On one spot of floor was a black charred patch that reeked of burnt flesh. I gave it a wide berth. He returned with a relieved look on his face, walking to the pile of gems and flopping down on it as he pressed his hand to his chest. "Phew. I don't think I've left my cave in forever. It looks like the Enclave didn't have the time to sneak in and try something." He looked at the burnt patch on the floor. "They're a little bit sore with me at the moment." The sheer absurdity of the situation snapped me out of my funk enough for me to smile and approach, extending a hoof. "Hi, I'm Blackjack. And you are?" "Spike," he replied as he rolled to his side, reaching down and shaking my hoof with remarkable care. Though most ponies, and I can count the exception on 2 hands, only know me as Watcher. "Well, thanks," I said, as I looked at the massive dragon and sat down hard. "You know, I really was not expecting this," I said as I gestured with my forehooves. "I figured you were some ghoul sitting in a shack or a bunker somewhere." Ponies aren't the only ones that are concerned with the future of Equestria. Griffins, zebras, even dragons have a stake in seeing it all put back to normal. I'm still a little fuzzy as to why. Your name rings a bell. He sighed with a sad little smile. No surprise. Rarity always kept me on a low profile. With so many dragons helping the zebras, well, it got awkward. He sat up a little. You're looking at Twilight Sparkle's #1 special assistant. I stared at him and gave my head a heart shake. Twilight Sparkle had a dragon as an assistant. Well, I was just a baby at the time. He replied with a modest smile. This was a long time ago, before the ministries, the war, everything. Back when it was just the 7 of us in Ponyville, and my biggest problems were diamond dogs kidnapping Rarity. He looked wistfully away. Sometimes I can close my eyes and almost smell Twilight's daffodil and daisy sandwich. That stabbed at me. As if that will ever happen again. I muttered, my gaze dropping. That claw reached down to tilt my face up. It will. You asked me what gives me hope every day. Hope to try and help the ponies in the wasteland. To help them do better? I swallowed hard and nodded. Please let this be what I need. He slowly stood once more and started towards the back of the cave. Why don't you come with me? You need to see something. What? I asked as I followed. The thing that may someday save Equestria. Footnote. Level up. New perk added. Weapon handling. If your horn's gotten tough to handle the kick, or you've broken in that battle saddle, weapon strength requirements are 2 less for you. Quest perk added. Star touched. The stars are watching out for you. Others suffer a 10% penalty to critical chance, and a 25% penalty to critical damage against you. It's the horrifying story of the messy, inconsiderate ghost who irritated every pony within 100 miles. Ooh. I had to admit, I had no idea what to expect. Something here gave Watcher the ability to go on day after day, year after year, the strength to face a future that seemed determined to get bleaker and darker till everything was lost. I needed that strength, virtues, friendship, even love wasn't enough. I needed a reason to live, or else I was already dead. Spike stretched his arms and wings far overhead as he walked. I don't think I've ever felt like that before. You mares must be rubbing off on me, he said with a rueful chuckle. I couldn't help but smile nervously. He was a large, scaly, fire-breathing carnivore. You seem like you're in a good mood. He blinked, then looked at me with the smallest of smiles. You know, I am. Between you and her and everything, I feel better than I have in decades. Her? Oh, that Mary you were talking about. How did that go? He snorted, glaring at the burning patch. Aside from the Enclave making an ass of themselves, just fine, he said in a low, worrying growl. They're up to something, though. Tell me about it. I looked around the cave. Now that I was a bit less nervous, I could appreciate how unexpected it was. A huge pile of gems I'd been next to was only one of several, but that wasn't surprising in a dragon's cave. What was surprising were the high shelves packed with books that covered most of the walls. We also passed a dragon-sized circular bed which, aside from its shape, size, and being built into a pedestal, was perfectly ordinary with pillows and blankets. An ordinary-looking terminal stood on a pedestal next to the bed. I looked up and saw a rough, stalactite-strewn ceiling, exactly what you'd expect in a cave. I thought of asking Watcher if all dragon caves were like this, but decided that there were more important things to worry about at the moment. So, you have something to show me? I do. He replied in a softer voice, stepping in front of a passage leading deeper into the mountain. But I need something from you first. something very important. A promise. You have to keep this from your friends. From every pony you can. After what I pulled tonight, I'm not sure I'll still have any friends. I muttered, my ears drooping. Then I met his green gaze, sighed, and straightened. I promise. I'll do everything I can to keep your secrets, Watcher. He looked at me for a long moment, as if trying to gauge the sincerity in my words, then nodded. We wound our way further into the cave, as Watcher, or should I call him Spike, talked in his slow, deep, rumbling voice. When the ministries were formed, Twilight Sparkle devoted herself to helping Princess Luna win the war. None of us thought it would be easy, but I think there was conceit that, now that we were involved, it'd all be wrapped up soon. But the bigger the ministries got, the less Twilight saw her friends. Did you know that, for years, Twilight lived almost completely alone in Canterlot? He asked, looking back at me, and I shook my head dumbly. She had me, of course, but her entire life was studying and thinking and learning new magic. Then Princess Celestia sent her to Ponyville. She met her friends there and stopped the rise of Nightmare Moon. Together they could do anything. But once they drove into the ministries, they were slowly pulled apart. It wasn't like there was some plot to keep them isolated. The war was just so big that, honestly, there was no way for us to be together like we used to. And Twilight, she regressed to how she lived in Canterlot, except that she was desperate for those moments when she could be with her friends, for times where they could pretend like everything was okay. Most folks thought she was happy being in charge of an entire ministry dedicated to arcane sciences. He let out a great sigh. And deep down, I think she hated it more than any pony. I don't understand how it happened, though. I mean, why didn't they just quit if they were so unhappy? He stopped and looked down at me again. How it happened is a bit more complicated. But as for why she didn't just quit, why don't you quit being security? I arched a brow and gave a little smile. Spike, I was going to blow my brains out 15 minutes ago. That was suicide. I mean, why don't you quit? He asked, pointing at the word security on my barding with his huge claw. Take off the armor. Go back to chapel. Let every pony know you're done with wandering the wasteland and helping out Hoofington. Why don't you do that? Seems a bit saner than killing yourself. The thought hadn't entered my mind, and I sat down hard. Why hadn't I thought of that? Just give up the job without giving up life. But the thought of what my friends would say, what DJ Pony or Priest or Bottle Cap would think. I swallowed hard the unpleasant thoughts, and he nodded. Exactly. It's easy to die, not so easy to quit. Once they were the ministry mares, they couldn't stop. They wanted to. I don't think even Rainbow Dash liked what they'd become. But they couldn't. Not without completely humiliating themselves and letting down Princess Luna. He looked away with a wistful gaze. There was a time, about 5 years after the MAS formed, that I thought she was going to do it. Step down, head the ministry over to Mosaic or Gestalt. Just walk away to the life she wanted. So, what happened? Shattertooth Ridge. The assassination attempt on Celestia, I think, broke something in her. After that, she became consumed. Her friends grew further and further apart, especially her and Pinkie Pie. But even I wasn't around like I should have been. One day, she showed me this. He said as we reached the end of the tunnel. The chamber was huge. Large enough for Spike to raise to his full height. I'd never seen so many mainframes. The 6 walls of the chamber formed a hexagon lined with gems and arcane machinery. In the center of the room, though, rose a large, elegant stalagmite of technology that made the walls seem like only a step above bare rock. It seemed to breathe silently, as if it were asleep. My eyes were drawn higher and higher up that spire, until I was looking out at the black patch of faint stars. And then I I promptly fell back with a limp thud. Spike blinked in surprise. Sorry, I muttered lamely. I'm not good with heights. I rose to my hooves and gave myself a good shake. What is that? That is a Crusader super mainframe, he said quietly, as if I could hear him. It's one of the single greatest arcane machines ever invented, capable of handling both technological data of staggering complexity and employing precision magical effects. He looked up at it. She designed it herself, completely secret from the rest of the ministries, and even her own people. I couldn't believe that. There was no way one pony, or even one pony and a dragon, could build something like this and keep it secret. Materials, technology. Then I looked at him again. The OIA did this, didn't they? He looked shocked, even a little impressed. You know about them, huh? He looked at the supercomputer with a grudging glare and sighed. Yes. She commissioned it from the OIA. Golden Blood got the machines, the equipment, from somewhere. Everything completely off the books. 100 ponies lived in this cave for 2 years straight constructing it. Then he had their memories erased. I don't understand. Why the big secret? What is it? I asked, looking at the sleeping machine as if it taps into a source of power greater than even Princess Luna in Celestia, the elements of harmony. He walked along beside me as he pointed at the jeweled necklaces sitting on crystalline pedestals surrounding the machine. Honesty, kindness, laughter, generosity, loyalty. He paused for a moment, his green eyes lingering on the last, which was a strange crown thingy instead of a necklace. Magic. So, let's get the show on the road. How do we fire it up? I asked as I looked at the machine. Maybe there was a button that needed pushing? A bright red one? I reached towards a likely-looking gem, but caught Spike's look. Right. No touchy. We can't, he said softly. It won't work without the elements of harmony. But I thought you said those were the elements of harmony, I said, waving a confused hoof at the necklace and crown thing. He looked like he was trying to decide whether or not to smile. They are. But, he began after a moment. I suppose you could say they're dormant. The physical forms of the elements of harmony aren't enough. For the power to be used, they have to be wielded by ponies who embody the elements. The ministry mares were the bearers, once. But that was a long, long time ago. There was a pause as we both thought. The only sound was the beeping of the active mainframe wall. So, I said, you're looking for ponies that fit the bill. He nodded solemnly. For 2 centuries. Every now and then I might find one, but then they die, or they lose themselves in the wasteland, or just never meet any others. I try to encourage the elements and foster them wherever I can. Like when you saw P21 and me helping each other outside the stable. But I haven't been able to find enough yet. I thought of my friends. Glory. Was she still loyal after what I'd pulled? Or was her virtue something else? I doubted Rampage's laughter would fit. P21? Acuna? Would this even work with an Alicorn? I'm sorry, Spike. I really wish I could be one of those 6 ponies, but I don't think I'm your mare. To be honest, I'm terrified of any mega spell that included me as a component. He reached down and patted my head. Okay, I try to appreciate the intent, even if it did just remind my body that I was standing next to a dragon. It's alright. The fact is that, even after all this time, I doubt I've come across more than a dozen ponies that were possibilities. Think of how hard it must be to find honesty in a place like this. Or generosity, when ponies kill each other for what was effectively century-old litter. He looked at the majestic machine with a sigh. reaching out to touch it.
What is it, honey? Yeah, do you want attention?
Ponies. I still have hope that someday I might find the six needed and give Equestria a chance to be reborn. It was a long shot. I knew it. So did he. But as I sat there looking at the machine, I gave a little frown. My eyes were drawn to the necklace with the diamond-shaped jewel, and I had a niggling thought. What about Bottle Cap? Maybe, though I feared that her trading in weapon might disqualify her. While she was generous, in her own way she had caused harm as well. Caprice? Yeah, right. I did know one pony, though. One infuriating, obnoxious, ruthless little pony who had no scruples against trading every cap she could get her dirty little hooves on, but who also went above and beyond in making sure that everybody had what they needed. A pony who somehow found a way to make a daisy sandwich, gave me a box of spark batteries, and sold Glory the barding she'd need so she wouldn't look like a raider. I groaned, pressing my hooves to my temples, hoping I wouldn't regret it. Is there an age limit on this thing? I asked, with a rueful smile. As we walked back to the main chamber, I felt something settling inside of me. A dream of a green Equestria. I knew that gardens wouldn't magically make everything perfect. There was still the Enclave and the mysterious projects to deal with. And the raiders, the slavers, the bandits, the remnant, and goddess knows what else. But in Equestria, where the land could grow uncontaminated food, and the rivers lacked raging water, maybe you could even disrupt the enervation that sickened countless ponies. The idea, the sheer possibility, was intoxicating. Sure, the odds were slim. But I'd beaten Gorgon and Deus, and had a boat dropped on me. I could make those odds. I looked over the display case, minuscule compared to the bookshelves that surrounded it, smiling fondly at the set of 6 figurines inside of it. Together they looked whole, happy. Compared to those 6 figurines, every memory I'd had of my friends was stained with gray. I told them about Charity, about my hunch that her virtue might be generosity. The dragon rubbed his spines, a little skeptical but willing to consider the possibility. It was the best I could do. It's hard to believe that all this was done in secrecy. I marveled, but noticed Spike seemed a little put out by the comment. You'd have to know Golden Blood. Then you wouldn't be surprised at all. He muttered darkly, plucking up a ruby. His green eyes narrowed as he seized it, crushed it into powder, and tossed it into his mouth. Did you know Golden Blood? I asked, and he nodded with a dark look. I felt curiosity nibbling at my mane. I see the ministry everywhere that I look, but the OIA has been nearly impossible to nail down. They were designed that way. Again, you'd have to know Golden Blood. He licked the rest of the red powder from his fingers, then blinked and looked at my wide grin. He sighed. Everybody knows about Celestia, Luna, and the ministry mares. But no pony knows about Golden Blood, because he was always 2 steps away from everything. He was smart. Not like Twilight Sparkle smart.
Hello, Cookie Cat.
I couldn't imagine any pony knowing. He could read zebra and speak dragon. He probably knew most of the most influential ponies in Equestria. But above all, he knew politics. And he was the one who knew that what he was doing was wrong, and did it anyway. I don't understand. Why was forming the ministries wrong? Didn't your friends agree? Princess Luna didn't force them into it, did she? I asked, remembering that beautiful, if faintly a filthy figure. If you mean, were spears involved? No. Spike muttered and then sighed. I was there when Luna met with my friends, and so was he. The purple dragon snorted softly. She explained how Twilight and the others were ponies she respected. Ponies who had saved Equestria in the past and were now needed to help protect Equestria again. How something had to be done to restore confidence after Littlehorn. Then Golden Blood tried to talk us all out of it. He said sourly, What? I blinked, stupefied. Spike stretched his arm to the terminal, and with shocking deftness, accessed a file. Twilight Sparkle somehow got her horn on this recording. The terminal cracked for a moment. Then Twilight Sparkle's voice came out loud and clear. I don't know how we're supposed to help, Your Majesty. This war seems too big for us, for any one pony to be able to affect it. I knew the rasping gasp that came next. I know, it's intimidating to consider, Twilight. We're not afraid, snapped a mare, and my eyes were drawn to the figurine of the Cyan Pegasus. You should be, Rainbow Dash, Golden Blood said grimly. We're not asking you to risk your lives in a fight, or to go on a quest for some treasure. What we are asking you to do is to assume responsibility. You will be given the power not just to act, but to direct others to act on your behalf, to work under your direction, to make your vision a reality. This is not the same as working on your own or with your friends. If you fail, the consequences fall not just on your heads, but on thousands, perhaps millions of lives. Can you accept that responsibility, Twilight? Or you, Rainbow Dash, Applejack, Fluttershy, Rarity? What about you, Pinkie Pie? He said in a grave voice. If not, then make your apologies right now and go. Golden Blood, this was your idea, Princess Luna protested. Then there was another wheezing gasp, coughing, wet. It sounded like he was drowning. Your Majesty, I know you wish to rule and to see this war to victory. I beg you to reconsider. We have an opportunity to create a new future for Equestria, a new society. No good can come from perpetuating this conflict. Sue for peace. Let the ponies of Equestria find another path. Live a life away from power. Luna sighed. I can't. Golden Blood, you know I can't. Make the little horn from me. Please. Help me make this new government a reality. A long pause. A soft, resigned sigh. As you wish, Your Majesty. The recording ended, and Spike turned back to me. After that, he worked with Twilight and Luna to get everything organized. He talked extensively with each of my friends, working out what powers and ideas they wanted, and codifying those into law. He worked with Rarity on the image that was needed to shore up the ministries. He worked with generals, aristocrats, and bureaucrats to make sure that they all got along. He gave a snort. Finally, he had a heart attack. Lily died. Fluttershy personally nursed him back to health. He rolled his eyes and gave a soft sigh. It was funny at the time. A pony so fixated on something that their heart stopped. Where had I heard that before? Oh yeah. My own stupid bud nearly dying in the ruins of Frankfurt. He almost died creating them. But I thought he was against the ministries. He sighed and shook his head. I know. With one breath he told us not to do it, but then he put every effort into making the ministries a success. That's the kind of pony he was. For a time there, I really hated him. His low growl made me glad that I didn't have yellow on me. You did. Why?
I'm about done with the drawing. I'm about done drawing Rampage. That's super cool. I can't wait to see it.
Oh, there was the war and Celestia's missions. They didn't feel much different from the adventures we'd had before. He said,
Can you guys hear me? Or hear the audio drama I'm playing? It's not complete dead silence, is it?
I told him I was a little cranky at the time, so I won't repeat the language. But I called him every last name in the book. And he told me that no matter how much I hated him, I was right to. And he'd always hate himself more. Wow. So, where did the OIA come in? Right from the start.
Good.
It was pretty clear there were going to be conflicts. I mean, my friends might have liked each other, but they still fought. You can imagine how Rarity and Applejack could carry on. Pinkie Pie wanting giant balloon fortresses floating off the towers of Canterlot, with Rarity saying that they were tacky, things like that. Even Twilight could be awfully stubborn if she put her mind to it. So Goldenblood stepped in to help work things out. There were still fights and arguments, but the OIA kept things running smoothly. Spike sighed again and shook his head. I remember the day so well. All my friends sharing ideas, talking about ways they could help, what they wanted to do. I remember Fluttershy crying when she was told that she'd be able to help thousands of herd ponies all at once. And all the while, Goldenblood was taking notes and watching and making suggestions. The massive dragon climbed out of bed and walked over to one of the shelves. Sometimes, I think that if there hadn't been an OIA or a Goldenblood, the ministries wouldn't have worked out. Or my friends would have quit. Something. He reached up to a shelf too high for me to see the contents of, and brought down an intricately carved wooden box. Here. Maybe this will help you understand what I mean. He opened it to reveal dozens of memory orbs in labeled, velvet-lined niches. He picked out one and then carefully sat on the floor next to me.
Some personality quirks are really funny. Like, I talk to my left foot more than I talk to my right. You know what's not funny and not a personality quirk? OCD. Although the term OCD is widely recognized, it's misunderstood by most people. It doesn't mean being tidy or clean. It's having obsessive fears, thoughts, and urges. You question your character. You question your safety. That's OCD.
I need to check on things.
Hi, Jax.
I get anxious if I stop paying attention to things going on for too long, he said, as we returned to bed and he started typing on the terminal. I looked at the offered orbs and gave a half smile. Well, it would be rude not to, right? I tapped my horn against the orb. Come on. Probably nothing gruesome in this. Come on. Come on. Finally, I felt a tickling connection as my reluctant horn reached out and made contact. The world swirled away around me. Okay. Mare. Wings. Pegasus. The place looked like some kind of mansion. No, if I had to describe this place, I'd say palace. Red and orange mane obscured to the right side of my vision. She walked with her head hung, tail dragging, and let out a soft sigh. Still, this body felt good, healthy, fit, and for some inexplicable reason, I felt 20% cooler just watching this memory. So, the Ministry of Awesome, rasped that horrible, wet, and rusty voice behind her. Every feather, and that wasn't that a freaking sensation, ruffled as she froze in place, then glanced behind her at the scarred pony with the golden eyes. Oh, hey, Golden, she said, turning and giving her most insincere grin I'd ever felt. And I was an expert. I just thought I'd slip out, stretch my wings, take some air. Though the doorway behind me, Goldenblood, I could see a room with a large table. Twilight Sparkle was talking, gesturing to some diagrams on chalkboards. Of course. I imagine a member of the Sky Guard doesn't have any opportunities for flying around and getting some air, he said in a whispery, rusty voice. He approached, and I felt her take a few more steps back. Goddesses, he'd been so much less freaky if he'd just blink. What's the matter, Rainbow Dash? She looked at the table and all her friends behind him. Nothing's wrong. Everything's great. Just great. Why would you think anything's wrong? She stammered. I've made an art of futility, sulking out back ways and exiting unnoticed my whole life. It's rarely done because a pony is feeling particularly bubbly about their circumstances. He kept up that staring gaze, his scar Dash looked at him for a long minute, then sighed. It's nothing. I'm useless. I can see why you think so, he replied, and she blinked and frowned. Gee, thanks, she said sarcastically and faltered. Or, wait, was that a cut? Can you smile or twitch your tail or something when you're messing with me? He turned and walked towards a pair of double doors. His horn glowed, pulling them open. So, Ministry of Awesome. Where your job is to be awesome. Make awesome. Sell only awesome of the highest quality. He asked with a ghost of a smile. It was all I could come up with, she replied with a grumble. It's easy for Twilight, Ministry of Magic or Arcane Sciences, whatever. Magic's always been her thing. It makes sense for her to coordinate it. Or Fluttershy wanted to run hospitals and stuff. Gee, you saw that one coming, she said, crossly as she rolled her eyes. But you're a flyer. Goldenblood rasped softly. But I'm a flyer. Then she blinked and narrowed her eyes at him. Don't do that. He just smiled a little more broadly as Rainbow Dash walked to the rail and looked out at the night. Canterlot was aglow with lights, far to the west as the golden glow of Manhattan. She sighed and closed her eyes. The only thing I'm really good at is flying. So, what? Am I supposed to have a ministry that regulates flying? Holds air shows? That'll really help Equestria. You have other strengths besides flying. Your loyalty goes without saying. You're brave, if reckless. Tenacious. Beautiful. Okay, I felt her blush something fierce. But then he said, but I know you feel inferior to your friends. She snorted. Yeah, right. What do I have to feel inferior about? He smiled softly at her and she muttered, right. Don't answer that. She took a deep breath. Look, I'll be fine. I'll figure something out. Somehow. She huffed as she folded her hooves on the marble rail of the balcony. It'd be a lot easier if I were, well, more like Twilight. Why? Because she's smart and you're not. Rainbow Dash looked at him, her ears drooping, but he simply put a hoof on her shoulder. You're not stupid. Perhaps you're not like Twilight or the others, but you are cunning and creative. I've seen you fly. Rainbow looked at him more directly now. What you need is a challenge. Well, yeah, and that's part of the reason I joined the Sky Guard. But this isn't a race or to win or something. I just can't fly out there and beat up the zebras with my own hooves. Then she paused and rubbed her chin, adding, maybe. You make a good team.
As long as we're together, it's perfect.
Surviving Siegfried.
You're the most ridiculous creature.
I hope you're referring to the dog. I'm not going to give up on you. Don't give up on me either.
Things do come through. Hey, lad?
Seems they do. We're in a contest now. War is a team sport, with deadly and desperate odds. Win and you live. Lose and you might die. He said quietly, and then smiled slowly. But there's more than one way to win this contest. Say, if you cheat. Cheat? Rainbow Dash blinked. How the heck do you cheat a war? I don't know there was a rule book. Most ponies think that wars are won on the battlefields, that there's no doubt that battles are critical. But what if an army arrives to the battle hungry because their food supplies were blown up, or lacking weapons because their shipments were delayed, or late because their base lost power? He asked with a steady little smile. Do you think that might change the battle? Well, sure. That makes sense. She cocked her head at him. So, don't we do that? He gave a tiny shrug. Our military is all about winning the battle. They aren't creative or cunning enough to risk going behind enemy lines and fighting dirty. Sabotage, infiltration, spying. These are the tools the army just isn't flexible enough to use efficiently. He was good. So good that I couldn't tell if he were playing her up to create that ministry or actually trying to help her. Rainbow Dash sat hard, running a hoof through her mane. And you're saying the Ministry of Awesome could do that? They could do far more. But that would be a start. Rainbow's eyes went wide as she stared at him. Why did he look so sad? Princess Luna will need a mare who can get special projects done. Tricky projects, secret projects that no pony can know about if we're going to win this war. He rasped. His golden eyes now stared out at the distant city as his breathing became harsher, punctuated with soft coughs. As you might know, the best kind of cheating is the kind you do when no pony knows you're cheating. Rainbow Dash stared hard and pointed a hoof at him. You mean I shouldn't tell any pony what I'm doing with my ministry? Does any pony expect you to do a lot with it? Did any of your friends really act all that surprised when you suggested the Ministry of Awesome? If some pony thinks less of you, they'll underestimate you. They'll make mistakes, and they'll give you the freedom you need to act. Whoa. Rainbow Dash blinked, her eyes going wide. You were scary good. You know that, Goldie? Good at everything except breathing, he said with a self-depreciating smile. Together they stared back towards the conference room. But I thought about what he'd just said. I wondered if all of his deflections weren't just ways to make the others underestimate him. I imagined a chill when I realized I didn't know Golden Blood at all. Was he a bastard manipulating every pony around him for his own ends? Was he truly trying to save Equestria? Was he a good pony or a villain? What had he been thinking when the ponies turned into monsters with Project Chimera, or made half machine with Project Steel Pony? And the other projects, Eternity, Redoubt, Party Pooper, Starfall, and Horizons, all created by Golden Blood on some level, all sealed by EC-1101. I came out of it alone. I could only figure that Spike was checking on the gardens, or organizing books, or whatever it was reclusive dragons did when they weren't helping the wasteland ponies in a never-ending search for the 6 virtues. I carefully lifted the orb to my case and slipped it back into the empty nook, closing the lid. There were probably days worth of memories here, but as much as I might have liked to go through them all, I had to get back to my friends. Then I'd have to hug their hooves and beg them to forgive me. Tears would be employed. You know, I'm really not good at waiting. I stared down a side tunnel, one a bit too small for a dragon unless he really wanted to squeeze. Plenty of room for me, of course. Gardens of Equestria had been a monumental feat of engineering and secrecy. Virtually a miniature stable had been built during its construction and development, though of course not a true stable. Double bunk beds lay in dusty rows, and I suspected that the workers had slept in shifts. The normal priority of scavenging went weapons, armor, medical, food, and drink, and something to sleep in. When I was about as abnormal a mare as you could get, the first place I hit was the kitchen, where I was rewarded with not one, but 2 boxes of sugar apple bombs and some fancy buck cakes. Cherry. And to complete the miracle of the wasteland, there was a 6-packs of Buckweiser in the fridge. I had to admit, I wasn't precisely the greatest aficionado of fermented hops and barley, but after the last few days, I honestly didn't give a shit. I savored one bottle as I poked around for further. Then, I took the liberty of checking the toilet facilities and found myself a porcelain basin of heaven. My insides melted. My knees were weak. I might have been marginally aroused. Hot water. Was there any surer sign of civilization than the ability to pour unending amounts of steamy fluid over one's body? The Sprite bite found me lying back in the tub, with a bottle floating above me as I hummed a song of inebriation to myself. 2 empty bottles joined me on a sea voyage as the little robot looked down at me. Oh, that's where you went. I was worried. Then I paused. Are you drunk? No, that is incorrect. I'm drinking. More accurately, I am approaching the state of being that is drunk. I scowled at the half-empty bottle. A journey that is taking me somewhat longer than I anticipated. It'd only take me a quarter bottle of whiskey to get this buzzed. I raised the bottle to the bond. I drink to your good health, good Sir Dragon. There was no answer for a bit, and then he simply replied, Blackjack, you're so random. After a soak, which did a marvel on my attitude, I stopped and considered myself in a mirror by the sinks. The last 3 weeks did a number on me. I was definitely skinnier than I had been. The shiny scar on my chest was the most obvious souvenir of combat, and it was joined by a satellite of injuries around it. Between the chemical burns and the shower, I was going to be a mottled pink instead of a white. And my mane needed grooming badly. I chuckled ruefully, going from suicidal to wanting a haircut. That was progress, right? So, going through for supplies, Spike asked. Yeah, hope you don't mind, I said as I tugged open the box of cereal. I know that this is all your stuff. Don't worry about it. I'm not using any of it. Honestly, I forgot that these smaller tunnels were down here. I personally wondered how Spike had managed not to go stark raving mad all alone. I suppose having guests like me and his mysterious mare friend did him a lot of good. So, tell me about your friend, I asked, around a mouthful of sugar apple bombs. Wonderful, powdery dust all over my muzzle as I floated the box to my left and the beer to my right. I found an arm locker and did a little happy dance at the sight of the ammo containers. It was like my birthday. Who? Oh, you mean Little Pip and her friends? Yeah, I said, as I looked in one ammo box and gave a little squeal of delight. To spare my poor shotgun, because no pony had included explosive rounds in this arm locker. I had missed the little orange shells of Boom. What's she like? She's kinda hard to describe. She's kinda like you, actually. That made my ears perk. Minus the drinking, he added. I snorted. If she couldn't handle little wild Pegasus, she struggled every day to make the wasteland a better place, no matter what. Okay, I could excuse sobriety for that. She's like me. Poor dear, I said with a smile, cleaning out a supply of shotgun shells, but leaving the other ammo. Maybe someday this little Pip or some other pony might need some. I also found a second pump action and a sweet muzzle choke that would help reduce my spread of buckshot. And her friends? I asked as I pulled the two guns apart and started picking out the better parts. Well, there's Velvet Remedy. She's the closest thing to a real pacifist I've ever seen in the wasteland. Thank goodness she's got her friends to keep her safe. Then there's Calamity, a Dashite with a real beef against raiders. I like him, but he's definitely got a past he's trying to leave behind. Steel Hooves, a Steel Ranger from Manhattan, is their heavy weapons pony. Not really sure about him, but he's much better than the rest of the Rangers. Spike said with an annoyed snort. I cocked my head and looked up at the little machine. You have a problem with the Steel Rangers? Any pony who puts more importance in a suit of power armor or a Gatling gun than on any pony's life, needing help, isn't a pony in my book. Plus, there's the fact that how they feel they got a mandate to possess any and all technology that they've deemed advanced enough. I noticed my I'm not getting the problem look, and he sighed. What's the most advanced technology in all of Equestria? Oh, shit. You think they'd try and take it or something? More like try something and get it damaged when I stop them, he replied, and I could just imagine a toothy, draconic grin. I thought about that. I really didn't know much about the Steel Rangers. Then again, there was so much that I didn't know very much about. So, is that all her friends? Her close ones. The ones who travel with her, yes. I expected the shotgun parts in silence for a few moments. But then a thought struck me. Do you know the stable dweller too? I said with a small grin. Then there was a pause. Yeah. What's she like? I asked, as I carefully added the mod. I didn't want my gun blowing up later because I'd screwed something on wrong. Well, Blackjack? You mean you don't know who she is? Well, no, it's not like she gets out east a lot, I said with a small huff of annoyance. I like to imagine her as some big, tough, take-no-shit kind of mare. Sort of like, did you know Big Macintosh? You knew Applejack, so you must have. I said as I wandered into a small medical bay. Ooh, spare buck, magical bandages, and a dusty but still beautifully lustrous purple healing potion that would really heal. Goddesses, I hated enervation. That's what I imagine she's like. Big and tough, and strong, and doesn't let anything cross her. She probably dual wields miniguns with missile launchers strapped to them. I brightened as I grinned. She's probably got some kind of power armor too, like magical super heavy plate that blasts lightning from her horn, and flies. There was a prolonged silence from the little machine. Spike? I frowned. From somewhere deep inside the mountain, I thought I heard laughter echoing down the halls. Well, Spike must have been seeing something really funny on his monitors, because for the moment I was left alone. Hopefully he'd share the joke. Then, in the corner of the barracks, I saw a small door I'd nearly missed. Well, couldn't pass up the broom closet, could I? But this led to a small office, and a side room that was, rather in storage. The room was quite full, but very neat. Somehow it felt like my mom's room, and I felt like a trespasser inside. Books lined the walls in alphabetized neatness, and there were diagrams and designs of the supercomputer I'd seen earlier. 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 terminals, a safe. The terminals took one look at my feeble hacking skills and virtually spat in my face in contempt. I had better luck with the safe, though. Inside there were a lot of papers, a bag of bits, and a recording device. I played back the recording. Is that everyone, Golden Blood? Twilight Sparkle asked softly. Almost, he replied. I've modified their memories. They'll remember working on Stable 93, when a gas leak knocked them all out and the stable had to be evacuated. He gave a horrid, raspy little chuckle. Close enough to the truth for your ends, I think. I'll never know how you arranged this with Stable Tech, or managed to keep it a secret. It's incredible, Golden Blood. And then there was a soft sound of a kiss. No, Twilight. Oh, that wasn't an awkward silence. I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. Twilight stammered. You're happy because you finally made something that'll save Equestria if the worst happens. I hope it does. Hope it works, or hope that the worst happens? Now it was Twilight's turn to sound skeptical. You sound like you've been given up on winning the war. Well, pessimists are always pleasantly surprised, he replied faintly. But if you really believed this would end well, you wouldn't have bothered to create gardens. Somehow, the zebras got their hooves on mega spells. I can't imagine it. Our most critical and highly guarded secret, and they've got them now. It's now just a matter of time before they're weaponized. Twilight muttered softly. Yes, but that's something for morale to uncover, he replied, and got back a low hiss of disgust. Something wrong. Morale. Pinky. I don't know what's wrong with her. What's gotten into her? The spying? The drugs? The arrests? How did she turn into this? Twilight muttered softly. There was a momentary pause, and then he said quietly, You, all of your friends, should understand. What? There was a little shock and anger, but curiosity as well. You know what it's like to be in a room filled with hundreds and feel utterly alone. You're brilliant, Twilight. But you know that there are few who really and truly care for you. You're respected, certainly, but feared as well. You know how sensitive and perceptive Pinkie Pie is. You really think there's a single pony around her that likes being with her? Well, I mean, the parties and drugs, and there was a long, drawn-out sigh. You're feared for your accomplishments. Pinkie Pie is feared for her threats. With a single proofless accusation, she could make almost any pony disappear. The MOP is modifying memories with ever-increasing regularity. How could Pinkie Pie ever be happy knowing she's surrounded by ponies who fear her, who hate her? But she shouldn't be hated. Of course she shouldn't be. And you shouldn't be feared. Big Macintosh shouldn't have died. Little Horn shouldn't have happened. This whole war shouldn't have been fought. The mistakes, obvious, one after the next, shouldn't have happened. But they did. We can still save Equestria, Twilight Sparkle said with conviction. If all else fails, my friends and I will use the elements and save the kingdom. I have no doubt. And then there was a clicking of glasses, and then a sound of it being filled. I looked at an empty bottle of wine and 2 stained glasses, one broken on the floor. A toast to our efforts to save Equestria. One way or another, she'll be returned to what she should be. A sound of drinking and then a sigh. Well, I guess there's nothing left but to erase your memories now as well, Golden Blood. Ah, yes. I'm afraid we're going to hit a snag there, Golden Blood said softly. I'm sorry, Twilight. Golden? What are you talking about? And then there was a soft thud. You're very brilliant, Twilight, but sadly you're not sneaky enough. You won't be able to keep this a secret forever. I will, he said softly. If your method fails, mine will succeed. A few moments later, a much younger-sounding Spike asked, Twilight? Golden? Is everything okay? Just fine, Spike. I'm afraid she's exhausted, though. I removed the memories of this place just like she planned. I'll take her back to the MAS hub in Hoofington to recover. Another pause. You know what you have to do. Yeah. I just don't like it. Keeping secrets, I mean. You have to keep it a secret from every pony, Spike. Even Twilight. I'm sure she'll feel upset. Like she's wasted 2 years of her life and accomplished nothing. But why do we have to? If Princess Luna finds out what we did here, it would be a sign that we think she'll fail. Planning for disaster means you believe disaster will occur. I'd be exiled, or imprisoned, or exiled and imprisoned. Twilight may face even worse. I don't want that to happen, and I know you don't either. Besides, if the zebras found out that the gardens were here, then it might be immensely targeted. Right. I'll just tell every pony that I'm readying to layer my own. I'm finally flying now. Pretty soon, I won't be able to fit in Ponyville Library anymore. He let out a long sigh. And I just wish that you and Twilight had agreed to wipe your memories instead of hers. Yes, but I can keep secrets better than she. I don't like keeping things from her, Spike grumbled. I know what you mean. Neither do I. A long, rusty rattle sighed sound. Drowning in secrets, Spike. One day, all these secrets are going to kill me. I sat back, looking at the recording in horror as the playback ended. I took a slow, thoughtful sip of my beer. Twilight had sacrificed 2 years of her life to make gardens, and she hadn't even known about it. How could he? Yeah, that's the kind of bastard he was. The Sprite Bot said behind me, making me jump to my hooves and whirl to face him. One moment he was talking with her about Pinkie Pie, and the next he was drugging her and wiping her memory of the greatest accomplishment in history. What happened to her? I asked quietly. She became obsessed with winning the war. She got her hooves on another OIA dirty secret and renewed its research. Everything became focused around that. All the rest of us just fell away. Why did it sound like you were working with Golden Blood if you were Twilight's assistant? I asked, hoping this wasn't going to be a sore point. It's complicated, he said. But wasn't it? I worked with Golden Blood on and off over the years. He said I wanted to do my part and all that, but really, I was just spying, trying to find something to use against him. I take it didn't work out like you'd expected, I said with a sympathetic smile. I trot my way back out to the lair as Spike went on. Golden Blood wasn't what I expected. You saw the memory and heard the recording. I thought he was a villain who took my friends away. I thought he liked the war. Spike sighed. He did that a lot, but I suppose that he had plenty of reasons to. Did you know that, throughout the whole war, the OIA kept back channels with the Zebras trying to negotiate peace? Or that he ran constant interference to protect non-ponies too? He'd work for hours, sometimes days on end before he'd collapse. Then he'd crawl back and work some more. He kept saying that he was trying to save Equestria. Not win the war, not even end the war. It was always to save Equestria. I thought about that as I joined him in the main chamber again. The sprite bot chirped and flew up to a hole near the ceiling. I had to admit, I still didn't know what Golden Blood was either. If anything, I was even more confused now. Sinister manipulator, misunderstood genius, a pony who saw the writing on the wall because he'd written it himself. How had what he wanted been any different from what Twilight had? Or myself? I want to hear more about Golden Blood. The more I hear, the less I like. I said. I saw Spike smirk and added, with my own smile, not him so much. But it feels like he was the one who set up the big things. Magic levitated some square gems and placed them on end. Luna comes to him for advice and he sets up the ministries. He talks to your friends and talks them into becoming the Minister Mayors. He works in the OIA behind the scenes. The war gets worse and worse and he starts doing things like Project Chimera and Steel Pony, and then I knocked one gem over and it fell against the next, which fell against the next, and then the whole pile was tumbling over. Yeah. Now you know how I feel about Golden Blood. So what happened to him in the end? Wasn't he removed from being director? Suspended. Luna found out something she didn't like. I don't know what, but it caused a major shakeup. Still, I don't think even Luna realized just how much power he had at that point. I know that Horst might have been in charge, but the entire OIA went through Golden Blood and Hoovington. Nobody wanted to touch him. He knew too many secrets, had too much leverage. Then, finally, he was arrested for treason. Treason? I gasped. He nodded gravely. No pony knew the details. It didn't matter, though. The next day, the bombs fell. Canterlot was consumed by the pink cloud. Golden Blood probably died in his cell. He flicked away. A diamond, and the expression of good riddance was on his face. I frowned up at him. This wasn't quite what I expected. This wasn't anger. There was something else to this. Spike, why are you really upset with Golden Blood? He gave me a sharp look, and I was reminded that I was on the wrong side of Spike on the food chain to press questions.
We are the revolutionaries of today.
At the University of Massachusetts Amherst, a revolutionary spirit runs through our veins.
It inspires us
To think in new ways.
to challenge convention,
Not to simply be different.
but to actually make a difference.
In Massachusetts, the place where it all began.
We embrace the freedom to dream bigger.
To dig deeper.
We are committed.
To the relentless pursuit of progress.
Be revolutionary.
We are the University of Massachusetts Amherst.
Idol is back, and the best is yet to come. this. It's what American Idol is about.
You've got the magic in you.
American Idol Sundays on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Please, tell me. I think that Golden Blood might have done something in Hoofington. Something that's not over. Spike looked at me for a long moment, then let another sigh. Dragons aren't exactly real big on family. Twilight raised me. I loved her like a mother. She tried to teach me right from wrong. I grew up surrounded by mares. Don't get me wrong, they were my dearest friends too. There was just one thing missing. I thought of my own upbringing. Funny, 3 weeks ago, I never would have thought of it. No father. Yeah. Not a lot of guys in Ponyville were real keen on hanging out with a baby dragon. Oh, there was Big Macintosh and Angel Bunny, Snips and Snails, but yeah, not a lot of guys. He sat up and put his elbows on his knees, cupping his chin in his claws. You know how I said I originally cozied up to the OIA to find some dirt on Golden Blood? I nodded. He sighed. Well, over time it's sort of changed. I'd never really spent a lot of time around a guy like him. I told you how scary smart he was. Well, that didn't wow me much. Twilight was smarter, but he was also strong, determined, focused. As much as I resented how he created the ministries, he was also the closest thing I had ever had to a father. He told me once that a stallion had to devote himself to an idea, and, whatever that idea was, it would shape him for the rest of his life. Like a virtue, it would define you, build you into the person you are. It didn't matter if that idea was good or bad, so long as a guy stuck to it at all costs. The dragon looked back towards the depths of the cavern. Sometimes, when I get lonely or frustrated, or I just get tired of this, I think of that. I think of what it means to be a guy. That I have to remain true to this. And even though I hate him a bit, at the same time I can't hate him completely. I've tried. I just can't do it. He sighed and shook his head. The last thing he ever said to me, the night before he was arrested, was how proud he was that I protected the secret. That I kept the vigil. He was proud of me. I don't know if he was just lying to me, or if he meant it. But I still feel it inside. Well, you should be proud, I said. I think that, through it all, you've tried your best to stay true to Twilight, and what she tried to do here. I immediately brightened as I pointed a hoof at him. In fact, why can't you be the element of loyalty? I'm sure you'd make a great Rainbow Dash. He blinked and waved his hand at me. Oh no, there's no way I'm going to try impersonating her again. Didn't end well the first time, and it won't end well now. He said firmly, but then chuckled. But thanks for the thought. No problem. So, I looked at the mouth of the cave. I guess I should get back to my friends. I'm going to have to kiss Glory's hooves big time when I see her. Then there'll probably be some groveling involved. Tears. I sighed, looking around the cave. I don't suppose I could hang out here for a few years, could I? Just as an option? Go find your friends, Blackjack. I know they're worried sick. He said with a sigh. I'd fly you, but after leaving once, I'm positive the Enclave is on high alert for me to leave again. I won't be able to go out for a good while. Oh, great. That just left me on top of a really high mountain. Fortunately, the inebriation was making me feel a little less ugly about the prospect than usual. He must have seen it in my face because he chuckled. Don't worry, there's a path. I've got a few connections with ponies across the wasteland to bring me food and fresh gems in exchange for the info. Just hug the side of the mountain. Sure. Right. Sounds like a blast. I trot up to him. Thanks, Spike. For everything. For showing me something better. You're a good pony, Blackjack, he said as he stroked my mane with a claw tip. I know you don't feel it, or see it, or believe it, but you are. I hugged his claw tightly, being careful not to cut myself. I'd only had Mom for a family. But now I had an inkling of what it meant to have a big brother, too. A trail down was something of an exaggeration. At times, the trail was simply a ledge off a cliff, rising on one side and a void plunging down another. Only my inebriation kept my stomach from completely unloading as I picked my way down. I came to a gap in the trail and peeked down. Fuck me. Is that a river down there? All the way down there? From this high, I could see forever. Well, no, not forever, but it sure seemed like it. It felt like I was close enough to the cloud ceiling to reach up and touch it, which actually was pretty much the case. Grays and sickly greens and browns stained the landscape below like the hide of a rotting corpse.
Stormy, your family sucks balls, and they can go sit on a cactus.
I bet I could be better. Because of Twilight Sparkle and Spike, Little Pip, and the mysterious stable dweller. For the first time in a while, I felt glad to be out here. I just wished I could have had a better look at the stars. Even though the cave was above the Enclave's cloud ceiling, there was a higher layer of thin clouds that not only blocked the moon and dimmer stars, but spread the moonlight out and made even
Well, the ones that make fun of you are butt faces.
Still,
I'm glad that not all of them are awful, though.
the moon had been one of the most awful things I'd ever seen. If I could have just stayed up there forever. But I still had my friends to meet up with, copious apologies to make, a brain that was slowly breaking down, possibly a really big bounty on my head, old plots that were still doing plot stuff, Enclave plagues. I cast one look down at the path behind me, running up into the cloud ceiling, took another long pull of the bottle of Buckweiser, and tried to set my mind firmly ahead. First, just gotta do this, I muttered as I looked at the gap. I could imagine a little pony singing in my head that all I needed to do was hop, skip, and jump. Right. So, a hop really was more of a step, a skip, a second step, and a don't look down. So, of course, I looked down. My eyes widened as I plunged to my death. Or not. My forehooves landed on the other side of the far gap. I heard an orange pony grow softly in the back of my mind. Okay, more voices in my head, but on the other hoof, still had a head to have voices in. Not plunging to my death. But now what? Missiles make everything easier. The rocket streaked from above, and my legs kicked me across the gap as it exploded behind me. The blast knocked me horn over heels and smacked me into the ledge on the far side. I lay there, upside down, as two suits of black Enclave power armor landed on my ledge while a third remained hovering above us. Damn it, Boomer. I can't question her if she's blown to pieces, yelled the leader through her helmet. Right. Save us all the yapping, muttered the bubble beside her. Till Command asks what we use a missile for. I chuckled as I fell over, then pushed myself upright and sat there against the stone. I looked right at the mare, who had more fiddly bits on her armor. I took her as the one in charge. You're coming with us. We've got questions about that dragon in there. I slowly rose to my hooves, laughing. Why is she laughing? The buck beside her asked. Is she drunk, Twister? I levitated out my last bottle of Buckweiser and popped the cap of my magic, tucking it in my pocket as I stared right at the pair. Yep, I said as I took a swig off the bottle and pulled out my shotgun. I think I'm just about there. The three stiffened, but then I started to eject the shells one after the next and put them in my saddlebags. Right, the lead mare said as she watched me unload my weapon. You drop your guns and come along peacefully, and there won't be any trouble. Just want to ask you a few questions. Oh, I don't really think so, I said as I stared at them and started loading the orange branded shells. You want to know what's really funny, though? You pulled this an hour ago. I probably would have gone along without a fuss. A normal smart pony would probably have shot me right now. But I had my shootiest look, staring up at the trio like I was the one who'd ambushed them. "You're twigged," the mayor muttered, and I laughed even more. "Oh, just a bit," I said with a grin. "There's 3 of us and 1 of you, and you're not in power armor, and you've only got a shotgun. Stand down, Mayor. I won't be asking a second time." "Maybe if you've got 6 more waiting, I'd be worried," I said, as I racked around into the chamber. "But right now, I've got my gun, my beer, a fire in my belly, and a grin on my face, and there's not a motherfucking pony in the wasteland who can stop me." "Right," she drawled, unimpressed. Sunset. The hovering mayor's Gatling energy rifles started to spin, but it was already too late for them. I leapt straight at Twister as I slipped into Sats, for 1 special attack and 1 standard, and this time resumed the beer bottle. It was flung over end and smashed across Sunset's visor and coated in sudsy froth. She reared back, her shots going high and blasting a crater field into the wall behind me, as my second attack sent an explosive shell straight into the leader's face. Her beam rifles flashed over me as smoking rock rained down all around us. With a final leap, I slid between the pair and fired a 3rd shot. But what I'd intended to be a gut shot to the leader simply blasted her scorpion tail. Oh, by the way, did I mention this was all taking place on a ledge? My hooves scrambled on the gravel as my rear end slipped over the edge. Boomer stabbed his tail at me wildly, the sharpened spike sparking off the stone. I stretched out my left hoof, gritting my teeth as the spike smashed hard into the reinforced casing of Marmalade's pipbuck. The power armor lifted me right into the air and nearly jerked my legs out of its socket. I blasted the end of his articulated tail, bouncing once, and rolled onto my feet. "Look out," the leader mare said, blood in her eyes as red beams of magic tried to turn me into a barbecued pony as I charged at Boomer. Sunset, her visor cleared, strafed me with rapid-fire disintegration bolts. I'd have to deal with that lickety-split. You know, I was discovering I had a new fondness for missiles. I shoved hard against Boomer as I snapped out my Dragon Claw. There was no doubt the articulated black armor was tough. With the exception of the visor and the extremities, I didn't really have much that would chew through it without a lot of sustained fire. However, there was one particular part of the armor that was just covered with reinforced rubber and waste collection systems. Tough stuff. My claw was tougher. I slid in close, using him as cover from the leader, then jabbed the claw hard against his nethers. "You'll be the 3rd male I've gelded if you don't shoot the flyer with a missile right now." Boomer froze. I wiggled the tip. Shit. "I'm sorry, Sunset." "What?" the hovering mare asked blankly before he sent up a rocket right into her chest. The missile exploded and sent her arching over the gap to land with a crash on the far side. "Boomer, you idiot!" the leader shouted in rage, and there was a blast of her red beam as it struck me in the Dragon Claw, squarely. In a flash, the weapon was reduced to sizzling chunks of bone. "Take her down, or I'll shoot your jewels myself." "I'm trying," he shouted as he shoved me away, but I'd swooped back to my shotgun and was blasting at his wing guards and weapons now. The leader had taken to the air. Her weapons were far more accurate at range than my shotgun, but not much more than my rifle. In Sats, I targeted her head. 2 rounds would probably do it. Be kind. Except if I killed her, it would probably make even more trouble for Spike. They already had questions for him. I canceled the 2 shots and placed 1 on each of her beam rifles instead. Luck was with me. The armor-piercing rounds I'd loaded with the print shop tore right through the delicate, magical weapon components. Boomer was turning to face me as he loaded another missile. But once more I was running. Bombarding smoking from the beam impacts, but at least I wasn't smoking as I jumped on top of him and put 2 rounds straight through one of his wing guards and into the feathered appendage. That was when the leader swooped in and tackled me. In a second, we were over a very long drop as my legs wrapped around her. "Gotcha," She laughed. I had to admit, she had very pretty lilac eyes. Then I pressed the shotgun against her head. Y'all can't be that crazy, she shouted as her eyes went wide. Y'all know too. Yes, and the thought of plummeting hundreds of thousands of feet to a very squishy end sent a very familiar fear screaming in my head. However, at this exact moment, the alcohol and the high I rode took that fear, tied it up, tossed it in the back closet of my mind, and beat it into submission with rubber hoses. Me? I've had sniper ponies blast me with artillery. I've been shot in the back by Zebra snipers, and taken an armor-piercing round through the skull. I've had my face attacked by almost every single pony I call close and personal friend. I've had boats dropped on me. Don't you tell me what will and won't kill me. I shouted in her face as I grinned from ear to ear. You hear me? You're fucking loco. I jammed the gun hard against her temple. Do you fucking hear me? I roared even louder, wondering if I could use her like a parachute. She must have seen it in my eyes. Yes, she yelled. Then, fly your ass out east right now, I said, and then glanced back at the nothing underneath me. You know, for being beaten with hoses, that fear was still mighty loud. And get me on your back, damn it. Please? What took Spygall of 2 minutes took Twister almost an hour. For the longest time, all she'd give me was her name, and a string of numbers, followed by a colorful collection of expletives about my sexual habits, breeding, health, and weight. She only once touched on the subject of my mother, which resulted in the connection of my shotgun butt against her skull, and a short fall before she regained enough consciousness to fly. After several dozen assorted questions, I got around to asking, so, messing with the VC isn't bad enough, and now Thunderhead's sending ponies to spy on dragons?
Oh my god, it's the fucking pink dragon.
She spoke.
It's weird as shit.
As we flew low. I might even survive a fall from this low. I'd break every bone in my body, but I might survive. You're not from Thunderhead, I said in surprise. Do I look like one of them fancy prance and cloud humpers? She replied crossly. Honestly, if it weren't ghouls or glory, Thunderherders are half a feather above surface scum in my book. Really? Wasn't this interesting? Well, so glad to meet a better class of enclave. So where are you from? Won't mean nothing to you, she drawled as she glared back at me. No harm in telling me then, I countered as we approached Star Point. Navarro, she replied after several seconds. You mind telling me what you and the dragon were yapping about? I thought about it and then shrugged. He was helping me with a problem. Problem? Yeah. I got a lot of ponies killed. Hit me hard. He was helping me get through it. He's nice like that. You should really leave him alone. Nice? She snorted. That dragon tortured one of us for trying to take a fugitive into custody. Don't you tell me how nice he is. I laughed. Wait, you tried to take something from a dragon's lair? Even I wasn't that stupid. She glanced back at me, her lavender eyes reddening. Well, yeah. Right. Good call. Be glad only one of you got toasted. He probably could have killed all of you, I pointed out, and she clearly didn't like it. Ain't nothing you'd understand, she muttered. Maybe not, but I was security in my stable, so I'm sorry. I know how bad it hurts to lose your own. And I could still hear the word and smell that smell as if it were still there. I wonder if I always would. Then I adopted a lighter tone. Still, I got to admit I'm just burning up with curiosity about your problem with Thunderhead. Because they've really got my hate too. And it seems damn stupid for us to fight each other. You're a surfacer. I ain't allowed to talk to you about nothing, she muttered stubbornly. Gotta keep our own safe and sound. Believe it or not, I understand that better than you know. Security. Remember? I said as she finally touched down on the rock. I slipped off her. Thunderhead operative Light Hooves created a plague that infected my stable, turned them all into raiders. I had to put them down myself. I said softly as I found vigilance amid the rocks and lifted it. You. What? Her eyes eyes widened in shock. You're lying. I stared right into her eyes. Tell me I'm lying again. And as I stared into her eyes, I thought of Midnight's Scream. I thought of the limp foals lying on the atrium floor. I thought of that horrible smell. But as much as it hurt, I didn't feel that hollowness inside. She looked away quickly, and I took a slow breath, opening a Sparkle Cola and taking a sip. Anyway, you should probably get going, I said as I unslung Taurus's rifle. Why? So you can shoot me in the back? She asked in alarm, her eyes narrowing. No, because I'm seeing a lot of red bars. Lots and lots of red bars, I said with a swallow as I lifted from the rifle and looked through the scope. Through the darkness and spitting rain, I picked out a leonine form and stinger tail amidst the stunted and dead trees. Manticores. Manticores? She said in alarm as she shielded her eyes from the rain. Damned hoofed and sky piss. She spotted them without the scope, backing away in alarm a little. What are critters like that doing out here? Following me, I bet, I muttered. No sign of the monster pony that controlled them. Well, take care. Have a good one. You helped, and held up your end of the bargain. I swept the rifle back and forth, looking for a skull to perforate. You're just gonna stay here and die, alone. She goggled at me. Well, you could stay and I'll have company. The arbor's trashed and those manticores can fly. It's me they want, not you. I muttered as I glanced back at her. But she was looking at me funny. Like, she wasn't sure if I was crazy or something else, or both. Can you buy me some time? Possibly. For what? Let me get some scrap metal and my armor will make repairs. I'll need a few minutes, though. She said as she opened up a panel on her forehoof similar to a pit buck. Well, I'm still in a storm. Right, I'll try and leave some for you. She snorted and smirked. You better. I ran towards the woods, hovering the rifle to my left and the shotgun to my right. Sure, it looked badass, but I doubt any pony would be impressed with my aim. I found a nice picnic bench, rested the hunting rifle on some boxes of junk, and took sight. 2 manticores reared and broke free from the group, bounding across the uneven ground as their claws scraped off the stone. Sats let me line up one of them perfectly. 1, 2, 3 rounds in its skull, and the lion monster staggered and fell to the side, unmoving. 1 down, a lot to go. I swapped targets and guns, my focus lining up the shot from the hip. The explosive slug fired, but lacked the hard surface it refused to detonate, just slamming into the monster's back and stopping it in its tracks. I wasted 4 more before the beast went down, and the rest were coming. As quickly as I could, I swapped the explosive rounds for buckshot and loaded the magazine of hollow points into the rifle. I started backing up, firing the rifle till they were close enough to pounce, and then swapped to the shotgun. There was no finesse in this, no elegance. Simply firing and moving as quickly as I could and not letting the giant felines pounce. If I'd had a wide open area, I'd have been fine. My butt hit a rock at the exact moment one pounced. I blasted twice with the shotgun, and the 3rd time I heard the sickening sound of it firing on an empty chamber. Its forelegs sunk 2 heavy claws into my shoulders, and it's opened its mouth wide to chop off my head. My eyes went wide as I stared into its gaping mouth. 3 magical bullets exploded right down its throat. The monster vomited hot red blood all over me, and then slumped against me. My horn throbbed with a sudden release of magic. Unfortunately, I was still spinning by the heavy body, as I was struggling to shake the claws from my guarding. 2 more were racing at me. How many rounds were in the rifle? 2. I brought out vigilance and opened fire. The heavy 12mm rounds bit deep into the massive monsters, enough to hold them at bay for a few precious seconds.
You got a thing of cheese? You should eat the cheese. Cheese is delicious. Highly recommend.
Through 10 rounds far too quickly. The less injured of the 2 pounced. Shit. I wasn't going to have a chance to grovel before glory, for finding out what the other projects were or where EC-1101 was. have a chance to find the other elements. They have really great makeup sex with Lordy. Fuck that! I screamed in furious defiance as I smacked the manticore across the face with vigilance while thrashing my way free from the corpse. It didn't have to kill the monster. I had to distract it. A few more seconds. I pushed myself free, shoving my body aside as I tried to summon a few more magical bullets. They weren't nearly as effective as the first volley, but they still left holes in the manticore's hide. Finally, the combination of pistol rounds and magical bullets dropped the beast into a heap. Unfortunately, there was one more, and I had 3 unloaded weapons, and a horn that was shot, and 3 seconds between now and the moment that the remaining manticore tore my head off. It leapt at me, claws extended, and spittle spraying in a glistening arc as the beast prepared to rend my flesh. Then, crimson beams flashed past me, the light striking it and transforming it into a glowing gray statue that exploded into a cloud of ash. Stepping onto the rock behind me, Twister shouted in glee, "Yeehaw! Bring it on, you flying pussies!" With her momentarily drawing their attention, I reloaded Vigilance and my shotgun. She played the crimson beams at range while I moved in for close and messy work. The remaining manticores scattered and disappeared back into the woods. My strength gave out as the adrenaline faded. "Well, thanks for the assist there." "'Twere nothing," she replied, and my mane crawled at the tone in her voice. Couldn't let an intelligence asset get killed. The hum of 2 charged beam rifles perked behind me. I let out a long, low sigh. "Why is nothing ever easy?" I said as I looked at Vigilance, turning it over before me. I helped flank. Turns out they were looking to sell me out. I try and help my stable, and then I have to kill my stable. I spare you and your friends, and you want to shoot me. You don't understand, you idiot. When you made me fly down here, you exposed me to sky knows what. My own team might shoot me on sight rather than let me expose them to whatever's crawling with plagues and diseases down here. And the dunderheads might just hang me for a spy. I want to get back. I'll need something that'll put me through decon rather than put a bullet through my brain. I got to take you back with me. I knew that desperate tone. I'd shared it myself on more than one occasion. You won't get contaminated so long as you don't eat contaminated ponies or food, I said rather matter-of-factly, as I stood and holstered my weapons. The volunteer corps seems to operate just fine, when they're not sending their own ponies on suicide missions to give peace offerings to raiders. "What are you doing?" she asked nervously as I started walking away. "Going to meet my friends," I replied. "You idiot! I'll blast you," she blustered, and I turned to face her. I replied blandly, "and I'm sure they'll be willing to decon whatever you when you come back with a bottle of ashes." That made her mouth work soundlessly before her lilac eyes narrowed. "Well, if I'm fucked either way," she began, "you can be stupid and try to kill me for some petty revenge," I said, staring into her eyes and making her balk. "Or you can come with me, and I'll introduce you to some ponies who might be able to help you." She licked her lips, looking around as if some other option might magically appear. Finally, she stomped her hooves hard. "Tarnation, this ain't fair." I blinked at her and grinned, spreading my forehooves wide as I laughed. "Welcome to Hoofington." I had to admit, I felt a little guilty about Twister's predicament, but it was her enclave's stupid rules and paranoia that had grounded her here. It had taken about 5 minutes of weeping, hoof stomps, and shooting manticore corpses before she finally realized that, either way, she was fucked. She could try and go back and get shot for her troubles, stay with me, or kill me and be stuck down here alone and really fucked. I took the time to harvest manticore venom sacs. They were the only part that seemed to have some value. Once more, I was riding her through the air, keeping an eye out for more of the flying beasts. She alternated between cursing and flying silently. We managed to reach Pony Joe's before she finally pulled down for a breather. I swept the inside.
Thank
It
you.
was so clear and clean.
I'm glad you like it. I can't figure out what the fuck I want to do with the background.
Shut up. I'm busy being pissed right now. She drawled. Yeah, I know. But you can be pissed and educational. I replied softly, stifling a yawn. You're not a Thunderhead Pegasus. I got that. So, why are you so pissed off at them? She looked at the cafe sullenly before she shrugged. They think they're so special, like prancing aristoponies or some shit. Ain't a Pegasus outside Thunderhead that don't hate them. Something fierce. And that surprised me. From the way Glory made it sound, the rest of the Enclave should be thankful. Look, Enclave is a whole parcel of towns trying to do our best to survive. We do what we got to do to protect our own. Always have, always will. She said, and added without bitterness. Even if we gotta cut off our own to do it. I guess idiotic levels of loyalty weren't just a Glory thing. But it ain't easy. You probably don't realize it, but the clouds ain't exactly the best place to grow crops. One mistake in management or just an unlucky equipment breakdown, and a town can face some hardship pretty quick. We pull together and help our own. And Thunderheads don't help nobody at all. She said grimly. I don't really follow. She sighed. When the bombs fail, what we had is what we got. You ever try to get a gun to work without failing for 2 centuries? Ain't happening. And gems don't grow in the sky. But Thunderhead had something none of the rest of them did. Shadowbolt Tower. From that blank look, she sighed. Dark ponies don't know nothing. Back during the war, Hoofington was the biggest target in all of Equestria. More so than even Canterlot, it seemed. There was something here that really ticked them zebras off. So when Rainbow Dash found the Shadowbolts, that primary base was here. Shadowbolt Tower. Fucking city was built like crazy. And they took the most awesome hub and just kept building higher and higher. She said they were going to build clear to the moon. That sounds about right, I muttered, remembering Hoofington Rises. Yeah, well, when the bombs fell, the tower stood, and it was so damn high that the top levels weren't irradiated. It had all sorts of magical fabrication equipment. Arms stores, weapons, a fucking treasure trove. But that wasn't the most important part. Shadowbolt Tower had something nowhere else had in the clouds. I thought for a moment and then caught her staring at my horn. Unicorns? Of course, unicorns. After all, Minty Fresh had been working with them. Mm-hmm. She nodded slowly. The tower's arcane science and technical staff pretty much all made it to the top of the tower before they died from the radiation. And they've been helping Thunderhead ever since. A fertilization talisman burns out, a unicorn can fix it. Need new beam weapons, a unicorn can make it. Cloud-damned hornheads keep Thunderhead sitting pretty. But they're still a member of the Enclave, right? Technically, she said with such disgust that I doubted it was more than a formality. To listen to them, they're the most important member. But the thing is, they don't just help the rest of us. Heck no. They'll trade talismans for favors, extra food for favors, technical assistance for favors. All them favors add up to a right comfy lifestyle for them and a downright shitty deal for the rest of us. So why doesn't the Enclave do something about them? Tried. She huffed softly. Nearly went to war to take the tower. Don't know the details at all. It was my grandma's time. Finally, there was an agreement made. Thunderhead disarms, agreed it wouldn't have firepower greater than them vertibug contraptions. No raptors or nothing. And they provide parts and technical assistance. And Thunderhead got to keep his unicorns and a no-fly zone from the rest of the Enclave. They're the most independent group of feather brains in the clouds, and don't give a shit about the rest of their own kind. I recall just how angry Glory got at the idea of just loyalty. If she felt that way as Thunderhead Pegasus, I could start to imagine just how furious the rest of the Enclave was. So, wait. If Thunderhead disarmed, why not just take it anyway? This little thing called honor? Look it up. She said dryly. But besides the treaties, I don't know. Times are damn strained right now, though. Hell, half of us were watching the Dragon, and the other half were watching Thunderheads. Now, they're pulling this volunteer crap, violating some of our most basic rules and laws, 'cause they can. She tapped her hooves on the tabletop. It ain't gonna end well. I do agree with that. Any chance your folks will come for you? She looked at me in confusion. I mean, are they really just going to let you leave here? She definitely didn't like thinking of this. If it was anywhere else, I'd probably be tracked down, extracted, questioned, and hopefully put in decon. But, and you'd be questioned, she added, reminding me we weren't exactly on happy terms. Unfortunately, I'm a Navarro pony in the no-fly zone, and now everything's political. If the Dunderheads got their hooves on me... She suddenly blinked. Horse apples. What? I blinked and rose to my hooves. Can they track you? I gotta get this off me. I gotta get this out of here right now. They're probably on their way. Twister shouted as she started to disconnect the seals on her armor. Can't you just deactivate whatever they track you with? I asked, wondering how the hay anybody was supposed to get in and out of that getup. Maybe. The transponder's there, she said as she reached back and opened a panel on her flank. I honestly didn't expect to ever find some pony with such skill, though. Where'd you learn Enclave power armor management? She asked as I moved to her side. She blinked as I loaded a round into the shotgun. The blast of buckshot knocked her right off her hooves with a shower of magical sparks, sending her rolling across the aisle. I didn't, I confessed as she lay there groaning. You okay? Dirt ponies suck, she groaned. Yeah. Did it work? I asked as I looked at these smoking arcane devices. It sure smelled disabled.
Okay, I think I'm gonna end stream.
She groaned as she stood and looked back at the wreckage. Yeah, but we got him.
I finished my little dragon.
I can't believe I didn't think of it sooner. All this damn dirt's making me stupid, she said as she started for the door.
Thanks for hanging out, you guys.
I asked, and she gave